Hello YouTube, this is Morgan, Airspeed Prime here with my next Transformers comic review. This is going to be the review for Transformers Dark Cybertron issues 1 through 6. The issues that will basically make up the first trade of Dark Cybertron. Usually I'd say I was actually reviewing that trade, but I didn't actually get it this time around. Mainly because there were no extras. I'll probably get it at some stage, but for the most part I think it's just fine here to actually just review the 6 individual issues of this event, and then my next review is obviously going to be the second 6 issues, which I'll probably review around the time when the second trade for Dark Cybertron comes out. So, first of all, what is Dark Cybertron? Why haven't I reviewing the next trade of Robots in Disguise or More Than Meets the Eye? Well, the answer to that is because Dark Cybertron is the big kind of season-ending event for both Transformers More Than Meets the Eye and Transformers Robots in Disguise, the 2 ongoing series. This is the event where all of these stories come back together, all leading up to this plan that Shockwave's had in planning, well, as far as like those 2 ongoings go, since basically the beginning. I think Robots in Disguise issue 1 has like a panel of Shockwave clearly planning something with some of the other Decepticons, and in this we find out that it's actually a plan that he has had in the making since basically his debut in the IDW universe. So it's a pretty big event here that we get, and one of the things I'll probably be discussing here is this 12 issue event worth basically taking 6 months off from Robots in Disguise and More Than Meets the Eye, so missing 6 issues of each? Was it worth missing that to get this big event when those comics were so good in the first place? That's what I'll be discussing here. Specifically, in this case, Dark Cybertron issue 1, which isn't actually a More Than Meets the Eye issue or Robots in Disguise issue. 1 and 12 are actually just special comics. You know, the start and end of Dark Cybertron. They don't belong. They don't basically aren't considered an issue of More Than Meets the Eye or ID. So there you have issue 1. You then have issue 2, or chapter 2, which is More Than Meets the Eye, issue 23. You then have Robots in Disguise issue 23, which is chapter 3 of Dark Cybertron. Followed by More Than Meets the Eye, issue 24, chapter 4. Robots in Disguise, issue 24, which is chapter 5. And finally, More Than Meets the Eye 25, which is chapter 6. So, I'm going to be reading the first half of this comic event. I think the first thing to say is just that Transformers hasn't really had the best kind of look with its event books. The only one that the only event that they've really done up to now has been the Chaos event, which the only really good thing you can say about that was that the way it ended kind of made it worth it, because where it ended, it set up More Than Meets the Eye and Robots in Disguise, which have been the best comics that have come out of IDW Transformers since it's began. So the one thing you can say about that is that the event led to good comics, though it maybe wasn't the best thing itself. And part of the reason for that was that was a dead universe kind of special thing, where they made a big deal about it being the dead universe. They kind of do that here as well. I think that's part of the issue that I have, at least with the start of it, that it's very dead universe focused. There's a lot of, we're kind of retracing old steps once again here. Why is the dead universe always the special event thing in Transformers? Now, Dark Cybertron does kind of do stuff towards the end to kind of basically take that out of the picture, and like Chaos, it kind of does set up stuff going forward that's really good. But how is it kind of overall, I suppose, is the main thing to talk about here. Especially for these first 6 issues, which are what I'm reviewing here, it is quite slow and kind of like set up before the second half, 7 through 12, which is actually really good. So it is kind of a tale of 2 halves here, where the first half, 1 through 6, the best analogy I can make is that like it's all of these stories coming together. It's obviously the More Than Meets the Eye crew, Robots in Disguise crew, plus the kind of side plot of Robots in Disguise with Orion Pax, kind of all of these stories, plus like Shockwave is kind of like this other thing, and there's some other stuff, all of these little plots all trying to go forward, and they don't combine until like pretty much towards the end of like chapter 6 and 5, stuff like that. They all don't come together until like a few issues in, and it just takes a long while for this to happen, because especially in the first few chapters you basically have each issue covering 4 separate stories, and so they only get a few pages each, and so they don't quite make steps forward. It's like, I've moved my left foot forward to make a step, now let's cut to the next story moving its left foot forward to make a step, and then the next one, and the next one, and then issue 2 you finally have that foot going down and the right foot coming forward. It's instead of like just every story going forward at like a really nice pace. It definitely picks up once the stories do come together, and the Dark Cybertron, like what it's actually about, starts to come out. But it does take a while to get going. And then another kind of issue would be the sheer number of artists on board with this. So I'm actually going to try, like, just based on the covers of these, list off all of the different people working on this book. So the writers are fine. We have James Robert and John Barber on writing duties, so that's good. They co-wrote this event together, but it's the artist that is the kind of issue here. We have Jimenez, Griffith, Cahill, Perez, Reyes, Rojo, Ramondelli, who else? Roche, Gill, Fajardo, and that's it. That's a lot of artists on this book, and it doesn't really have a regular artist, because even getting back towards issues 7 to 12, they start to bring back in like Andrew Griffith, they start to bring back in Alex Milne towards the end, and then some of these artists take a break and then come back, and then some of them don't. It's really weird. Like Roche, I think, is only on issue 4 for like a few pages, and then I think Reyes does the rest of like the More Than Meets the Eye panels in the book. It's really kind of awkward at times, especially some of the ones that have like a lot of artists, like as I said, issue 4. Look at the number of names in the top corner there. A lot of artists working on these books, and it does make them a little bit kind of difficult to kind of get into, just because the art changes like every page more or less. Like here's issue 4, you go from Nick Roche, like opening page, to you go 2-3 pages in, and then you're on someone else's art, and then you turn the page again and there's someone else's art, all on the kind of Lost Light, More Than Meets the Eye stuff. And then you go to Livio Ramondelli's art for the Dead Universe stuff, which that's one of the kind of things I do like, that they leave Livio doing the Dead Universe stuff, but it's the other stuff, it's the Robots in Disguise and More Than Meets the Eye stuff being done by multiple people. That's a bit of an issue. Then they switch it back to this artist, and and it just keeps going on like that. It just means that like you have Nick Roche on an issue, but he only does like a few pages of one section of the story, so that even though they try and break it down where like this artist is only doing like this group of characters, it doesn't fully work. I don't think it's like a huge problem, but it definitely highlights that, I think, even more so than the story not maybe being as good as More Than Meets the Eye and Robots in Disguise, it does highlight that the one thing that I really liked about those two series was that they had a super consistency with the artists, though at times the stories did bring in other artists, especially towards the end, like in the lead up to this. They let Alex and Andrew Griffith have a break, and so it does really highlight that when you have a consistent artist on board, where like you have your one writer, your one artist, your one colorist, really consistent comics, and then you have this with like everyone working on it. And I get it, because this story was like done super far out in advance, and it does kind of link in a lot with the toys. I think every single one of these issues actually comes with one of the toys, because some of the incentive covers, like you can see here, is meant to be for like the Tankor toy. When it comes out, we'll have this issue of Dark Cybertron with it. What's for this one? yeah, there's going to be like a rat trap toy or something like that. I haven't been keeping that much up with Generations, mainly because this stuff doesn't actually come out here. There's the Minicon Combiner team, which is actually the Ammonites, who kind of slight spoilers do actually make an appearance in this. So it's not just that More Than Meets the Eye introduced that for like a joke. They're kind of like the kind of Transformers thing. Um, but there are actually some really nice story stuff that they use those Ammonites for, because one thing that I do actually really like about this story, and that it is addressed in these early issues, is that they bring back stuff from Shockwave's kind of past in IDW since his basically debut, which I think was Spotlight Shockwave and the whole Ors thing. It basically gives you a complete answer for what those Ors were about. It's all leading up to this plan and coming together, and he really does present Shockwave as just this complete mastermind of this amazing kind of plan that he's had going on for millions of years, with these 13 ores spread across different planets, each of these ores doing something different. It brings in stuff from like Spotlight Cup, some of the other Dead Universe stuff from before, and then all these various other planets that they've visited, especially in the Syndromica stuff from like Robots in Disguise with Orion Pax and stuff like that, the planets that they visited. And you see that begin to come together, and it explains roughly what Shockwave's plan is. But just going back to the kind of whole toy thing, you can see that this issue is clearly comes with the Skywarp toy, as you can see here, I think, or else that comes with the new Starscream toy. This one obviously comes with Scoop, who's a character in this, talking about the prophecy, the Dark Cybertron prophecy, which I think was referenced in the Dark Cybertron Prelude stuff as well. But yes, and then this one, where's the cover? Oh yeah, it's Dark Cybertron 1 that comes with the new Starscream toy. And then it's the same for issues 7 through 12 as well. They have other toys listed there as well. But I suppose getting into some of the actual story of what actually happens here, as I said, in the early parts of this story, it is a lot of, okay, here's all of these characters. Here's the More Than Meets the Eye characters, Robots in Disguise characters. Here's Shockwave, the villains of the story. All have their little stories going forward until, I think it's Orion meets up with the crew of the Lost Light first, and then later on in the story, I think like 6, 7, 8 around then, the Lost Light arrives on Cybertron, and then everyone is linked back up together. All the while, you get this kind of thing of Shockwave manipulating the Dead Universe, and like Nova Prime comes back into things, Galvatron, and he's using Dreadwing and Waspinator as kind of people to further his goals and stuff like that. Jaxus is involved. You have some really nice stuff going on. It is just very slow. It's kind of hard to say like, in this issue this amazing thing happened. It's just like, in this issue this kind of happened, and set up what happened in the next one, would set up this, would set up this, would set up this, until you actually get for like the big events happening towards the end of the event, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, which is actually a really good conclusion. And the story really does pick up in 7 onwards. It's just the first half is so much setup, it's so much we need to wait for everyone to come together before a lot of stuff actually happens. But it works reasonably well, I think. As I said, you get moments like, you get some nice reunion moments, like Orion Pax meets up with the crew of the Lost Light, and so on. It's really interesting stuff. And as I said, like the issue 1 kind of chapter 1 cliffhanger is a combination of Necro Titan arriving on Cybertron, and then it being revealed that Shockwave is actually using Nova Prime and Galvatron to further his goals. And then the part of the Robots in Disguise story is that this Necro Titan arrives at the end of issue 1, and it's just standing there. And this is where the Dark Cybertron prophecy comes into things. Starscream goes up to talk to it, and he inadvertently activates it, basically spreading this plague, which is caused by a combination of some of the ores that obviously Shockwave has implanted, and you get this whole idea of the city turning against Starscream. He's now in charge, but everything's going wrong for him. You see some of the whole thing with Metal Hawk begin to come back into things, which I won't go into fully because it's a spoiler, and all this other stuff happening. It is good. I think it is a good event book, and I'm really saying that now because at the end, like I think if someone just picked up the first trade of this, which was just released, I think earlier this week on Wednesday, first trade came out. If you just picked that up and read the first 6 chapters without knowing what happens in 7 through 12, you would think, I think it's pretty slow and you're not really sure where the event is going. You know, there's good stuff going on, a lot of references, some nice reunions. You can tell it's a big event, but nothing huge happens just yet. And so I think a lot of it is very dependent on 7 through 12 to make it just really good. Though, as I said, it's still good. I definitely recommend picking it up. It's not like, if you like Robots in Disguise and More Than Meets the Eye, you should skip all of Dark Cybertron and just wait until, season 2 of everything starts with Windblade and More Than Meets the Eye and Robots in Disguise issue 28, where all the season 2s start. I don't think you need to skip this. I think this is definitely worth picking up because, especially the More Than Meets the Eye issues where you can tell James Roberts had a bit more of like writing involvement than John Barber. You can see some of that nice humor come back into things, and like the characters are still written as they were for the individual books, just kind of more together, everything coming together. It is still very good, and coming back to it, for the first half of Dark Cybertron, was it worth kind of taking the break for the event? Maybe not quite, but as I'm going to probably say when I review 7 through 12, I think in the end it just about makes it worth it, because I'll probably talk about it more in the next part, but this event is really big, especially with some of the stuff that happens towards the end. But that's been my review of chapters 1 through 6 of Transformers Dark Cybertron. I didn't go too much into this story because I really didn't want to spoil that much for you guys in case you haven't read it yet. But, and as well as that, not a massive amount happens. Like, I don't think there's any, like, huge event that I missed discussing here because I didn't mention it. All of the big stuff does happen in 7 through 12, and I think I probably will spoil some of that stuff because some big stuff happens. But thanks for watching this review, and bye.